everyone. Now we're going to answer the activity number 4, the decision-making process. Question number 1. What is a decision theory? So decision theory is an analytic and systematic way to tackle problems. It is an interdisciplinary approach to invite at the decisions that are the most advantageous given an uncertain environment. It brings together psychology, statistics, philosophy, and mathematics to analyze the decision-making process. It looks at how decisions are made, how multiple decisions influence one another, and how decision-making parties deal with uncertainty. Question number 2. What are the 6 steps in decision making? So the 6 steps in decision making are the following. The first step is clearly define the problem at hand. So it is really important and necessary to first define what the problem that the organization are facing before you can do some corrective action for it. Second, list the possible alternatives. So, you must list all the possible alternatives which can be used in making solution for the organizations. Third is identify the possible outcomes or states of nature. So, after listing all those possible alternatives, you must identify it one by one. And after that, the fourth one is list the payoff or typically profit of each combination of alternatives and outcomes. So, after identifying those possible outcomes from the alternatives that you are listing, now you must list the payoff of each combination of alternatives. And the fifth one is select one of the mathematical decision theory models. Since there are many mathematical decision theory models, you only need to choose one. Which one will you be using in your organization? And after selecting, the last one is to apply the model and make your decision. So after doing all the steps, after defining, listing the possible outcomes, possible alternatives rather, identifying the possible outcomes, listing the payoff, and selecting the mathematical decisions, this is the final one, which is you need to apply all those things in the end, make your decision. Question number 3. What are the types of decision-making environments? Give an example for each. So there are 3 types of decision-making environments, and they are the decision-making under certainty, decision-making under uncertainty, and the last one is the decision-making under risk. So the decision-making under certainty is the decision makers know with certainty the consequence of every alternative or decision choice. Naturally, they will choose the alternative that will maximize their well-being or will result in best outcomes. So example, a company produces 2 different auto parts, which is the A and B. The part A requires 2 hours of grinding and 2 hours of finishing, while the part B requires 2 hours of grinding and 4 hours of finishing. The company has 2 grinders and 3 finishers, each of which works 40 hours per week. Each part A brings a profit of 150 pesos, while each part B brings a profit of 200 pesos. Decision making under uncertainty. So in decision making under uncertainty, these are several possible outcomes for each alternative, and the decision maker does not know the probabilities of the various outcomes. So example, consider the case of a fashion designer who is planning her fall collection, where she has three options open to her with regard to the length of skirt, which are the maxi skirt, the midi skirts, and the mini skirts. The decision making under risk. In decision making under risk, there are several possible outcomes for each alternative, and the decision maker knows the probability of occurrence of each outcome. Example, we know that if we toss an unbiased coin, one of two equally likely outcomes, either head or tail, occur, and the probability of each outcome is predetermined. Question number 4. What are the most common criteria when making decision under uncertainty? So the most common criteria when making decision under uncertainty are the optimistic criterion. So in this criterion, it is the best maximum payoff for each alternative is considered, and the alternative with the best maximum of is selected. So by choosing this criterion, the highest possible payoff might be achieved rather than using the other alternative. So the second is pessimistic criterion. So the pessimistic criterion is the worst minimum payoff for each alternative is considered, and the alternative with best maximum of these selected. So this criterion guarantees the best of the worst values. The third one is the criterion of realism. So the criterion of realism is the compromise between the optimistic and pessimistic. So the advantage of this criterion is it allows the decision maker to build in personal feelings about relative of optimism and pessimism. The fourth one is equally likely. So the equally likely is the uses of all the payoffs for each alternative is equally likely. This involves in finding the average payoff for each alternative and selecting the alternative with the best is highest average. The last one is the minimax regret. So in this minimax regrets, the amount lost by not picking the best alternative in a given state of nature.